Last time I drew a parallel between the United States and France. This makes more sense than you'd think. The two countries have been similarly powerful, and I fear that they may fail in similar ways. For almost 1,000 years, the French really were the big dogs in Western civilization. When the Byzantine Empire and the Arabs looked west to Europe, they generally used one word: the Franks. The enlightened despots that built the states that eventually beat France down primarily spoke French. So did most everybody who wanted to travel internationally all the way up until the 1970s. Just before the leadership of the West traveled over to the United States, the British Empire briefly grabbed the mantle of dominance, but that was for less than a century. What made France so strong was two things that were always in conflict. On the one hand, the French were unified by a single king and a ruling class language long before the rest of the continent was. That, plus the sheer weight of numbers, made them powerful. This size and relative unity made France strong, but it was the chaotic diversity of centers of power that gave France its constantly renewed vitality and dynamism. The Normans who rampaged through Europe and the Near East from the 1000s through the 1300s were nominally subject to the French king, but they and the states they founded often worked against the French king. In terms of art history, the grandest French court wasn't that of the French king, but that of the Dukes of Burgundy in the 1300s and 1400s. France's chaotic vitality had a paradoxical effect. In the 1300s, the French were dominant enough in Europe to basically kidnap the Pope for 70 years. At the same time, the fact that French kings couldn't control their dukes and nobles meant that they lost a succession of battles during their 100 Years' War with the English, briefly losing the whole country in the early 1400s. In the 1500s, religious battles between Protestants and Catholics made this situation even worse. So it was natural that the French kings would work to crush this diversity. Louis XIV finished this process. His formative childhood experience was fleeing Paris during a rebellion of nobles and Paris merchants. His life's work became making sure that it never happened again. Folks still visit Louis's grand palace at Versailles. He required the French nobility to constantly attend his court. It was a kind of extravagant prison. The cost of keeping up with fashion, following Louis around, and paying for his wars eradicated France's independent power centers. That balance between unity and dynamism that had made France so vital was effectively over. Since the time of Louis, French power has been about Paris and not much else. He successfully made France conform with his idea of national greatness. Consolidating all of France's power under one city and leader briefly made the country very effective. The grandest short-term results of this consolidation probably came under Napoleon 100 years later. But this consolidation of power also made France very unstable. The 1,000-year-old French monarchy didn't last a single century after Louis XIV. The revolution that toppled the monarchy only accelerated the consolidation of power, subjecting the rest of the country to Paris through savage civil wars and the institutionalization of a certain idea of Frenchness. Countries with a single center of power can play catch-up well, as France did during the Industrial Revolution and during its mid-20th century economic miracle. But they don't deal with change comfortably. Since 1789, the United States and the United Kingdom have mostly had one form of evolving government each. France has had 5 republics, a couple emperors, a couple kings, and a couple German occupations. It was in serious danger of a military coup as recently as the 1960s. Louis XIV may have brought France to new heights, but he also started a process of decline in French power and influence that has lasted to the present day. Perhaps it's unfair to blame Louis for failing to balance the forces of unity and dynamism. Pretty much everyone in history has failed to do it. As Robert Frost put it, it's a place of pliant permanence that's hard to reach. Many believe, as I do, that the United States has historically done a good job of finding that balance. The U.S. Constitution, written mostly by James Madison, has allowed the U.S. to balance unity and a healthy chaos quite successfully. The reason I find Donald Trump so terrifying is the fact that he's promising to kill that balance, and to do to us what Louis XIV did to France. More on that next time. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and if you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here to find out how.